How many of you want to get a better grade? How many of you want to get a good grade on your final exam? How many of you are tutoring and the final exam could make a difference? About half of you. Okay, wow. Okay, and so you can see how this exam is a little more important. Not only is it worth more points usually, but it's also, if it makes the difference between a B and a C, or an A and a B, or a C and a D, it's a very important exam for you. Therefore, the planning you put into it is really going to benefit you. Another question. In terms of this final exam, how many of you is the exam worth more than 30% of your grade? A few. How many? In one class. Okay, right, at least one class. Okay. How many of you is it worth like 20% of your grade? Okay, well that's cool. That's one-fifth of your grade. That's a sizable chunk, isn't it? Right. So again, it's a more important test. How many of you have 5 final exams? Well, that's good. How many of you have 4 final exams? Okay. 3 final exams. Now we're getting more 2. Oh, you're the lucky ones. 1? Okay. So it's 2 to, most people have 2 to 4, with a few unlucky people with a 5. So you realize then, when you have that many exams, just how important it is to pace yourself. Because you've never had that many tests all at one time in all your classes. So first of all, my name is Berta Parrish. I'm the presenter for this workshop today. And I congratulate you for being here. Even if it's extra credit, you really didn't have to go for the extra credit. But you're going for the extra credit because you want to bring that grade up, that grade that's teetering on the edge. And also because you want to get the best grade you possibly can on your final exam. Exams, I should put an S on that, shouldn't I? Okay, how many of you have been through this before? At the college level, final exam period. Oh, how many is this your first time for a final exam? Oh, okay, have a few, just a few new first time, and then the majority of the class has been through it before. As a way of just starting out and getting an overview, and then for me to find out what your needs are, we're just going to cluster here your final exam challenges. Now, if you've been through it before, you know what these challenges are. If you haven't, you're probably speculating and worrying about them. So do the same thing. So what are some of the challenges for final exam week?
Remembering all the different information for the whole semester.
Recall, and you're talking about a comprehensive exam? Wow. The entire semester of stuff. And you know that's no easy feat. 18 weeks is a long semester. If you haven't looked at the stuff that you had in the first week or second week or third week, if it's been 15 or 16 weeks since she's even looked at chapter 1 and chapter 2 and chapter 3, that's the challenge of the recall. Okay, what's another challenge?
Just trying to study with work and life.
Okay, now that's balancing everything in your life, and that's been going on all semester, hasn't it? Balancing work and family and school and self, taking care of yourself. But during final exams, it's we'll talk about that. It changes a little bit during the next 3 weeks. What else?
I'm with the recall.
You're with the recall.
Yeah.
Just one? Just one challenge?
Yeah. Getting everything done.
Okay, getting everything done.
Papers, there's always, end of the semester stuff that has to be done.
Okay, that's why I called this workshop the Surviving the Crunch, because it feels like a crunch. Because not only do you have the test, you also have projects, like you said. Projects are due, papers are due in English classes and psychology classes. And then there's always a few exams, isn't there, at the end? I mean, they're still giving tests. How could they do that? Yeah, I know, that's right. But they do. So you also have all these things in addition, the usual assignments in addition to preparing for exams. Okay, what else? Can you rephrase
Procrastination.
that? Oh, procrastination. Right. See, I don't believe people procrastinate out of laziness. In fact, I gave a whole workshop on procrastination. Did any of you attend that? Oh, you did. Okay, good. I think it's procrastination. We procrastinate things that are either too difficult for us, we feel they're too difficult, or they're unpleasant. You know, like cleaning the house or doing other kinds of things, and we just don't want to do them. So it's a combination of procrastination and maybe motivation. Is that what you're talking about? You're talking about laziness? How do you stay motivated? And usually right before Thanksgiving is that dip. And it's hard to get motivated after Thanksgiving, so I'm already in the holiday mood, but I want to get out of here. Don't
Me
you?
too.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next 3 weeks to get over. I've got Christmas, I've got semester break, I've got, I've got things I want to do. These last 3 weeks, so not only are they crammed full of projects and papers and things, your motivation is lower right now because it is the end of the semester. You're tired, you're fatigued, you're bored, you've had this class, you're ready for it to end. Now I want you to know your instructor feels the exact same way. We hide it better though, and we're not being tested. Right. We got to grade those things, but we're not being tested. But we also look forward to the holidays. So you're right. Not only are you dealing with the intellectual preparation, the intellectual recall, how to remember all this stuff, intellectually balancing your time and your energy, getting everything done. And so related to this would be time management, right? For the next 3 weeks, you have to become that time management expert that you haven't been all semester long. Right, you know it. And we're going to cover some of the things that you need to do in the next 3 weeks. But part of this time management thing is the procrastination. If you've been procrastinating all semester, you're really in a deep doo-doo right now because you've got a mountain to climb maybe before finals is over because you haven't been keeping up. So you got 3 weeks now to kind of scale part of that mountain. So you can do your makeup work. You can turn in what has to be done. You're getting extra credit. You're doing exactly what you need to do to kind of start climbing that mountain. So that mountain isn't quite so tall. December. When's the first exam? When? The 18th. The 18th. December 18th. Okay. Is there any other final exam challenge that you have?
Sickness.
You mean,
Stress.
stress. That's what we'll call it. Because we're actually at this point in the semester, if you get sick, it's usually due to stress, or it's Thanksgiving hangover, I guess. Or the colds that are going around. But you only catch cold if your stress level is high. If your immune system is strong, you don't catch colds because you fight them off easily. So you do have to be careful of a higher stress level at the end of the semester because that's what you're dealing with. Now, stress can also equate into test anxiety, where you actually can forget what you studied the minute you walk in the door. And then you remember it the minute you walk out the door. But when you have the test in front of you, it's a blank. And that's because of the anxiety that can come from the stress. So you also, during the next 3 weeks, you also have to be reducing your stress level as much as you can. Now, it doesn't mean don't study. I mean, stay away from your books because they cause stress. No. But kind of do many things at the same time to keep down your stress. And we're going to talk, today's workshop is going to include all these things. The intellectual preparation, the emotional preparation, and the physical preparation for the next 3 weeks. Is there anything else we haven't covered that's worrying you right now about final exams, whether you've gone through before or not? Is this about it? That looks like a snapshot right now of your psyche? Yeah, okay. Well, that's good. That means you're in the right place. And that means you're going to get some answers. Now, it's up to you whether you're going to practice what you hear today. You can still procrastinate and come to your final exams unprepared, unconfident, freaked out, depressed, afraid to go home with your grades, or afraid your grades to show up on your parents or even for yourself. Okay, so he asked, what are these 3 Ps? I'm going to take them one by one. Okay, surviving the crunch. That's what you all want to do. First thing to do is to start planning. The first P is to plan. Anybody been in the military? The military has this wonderful motto about if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. If you fail to plan, you're actually planning to fail. Now, that can hit you right between the eyes because, a lot of times we don't recognize that it's a decision not to plan. And if you decide not to plan, even though you may be procrastinating planning, if you decide not to plan, then you really are kind of subconsciously agreeing to fail. So that's why planning is so important. So the first phase of the 3 Ps is to plan. So what kinds of things now should you be planning? This handout has a grid for you to assess your current grade. You need to really find out. I asked how many of you were on the borderline, and a lot of hands went up. You really need to know exactly what your current grade is, so you know how important this final exam is. You don't want to be surprised and say, oh, I thought I was getting a C when you're actually at the moment earning a D. You need to know that. You also need to study your return tests. You need to look at the tests that you've had all semester long, especially that comprehensive. If you have a comprehensive final, as you do, you need to look at all of those past tests. And you need to study those tests in terms of, what did you miss, the error patterns, in terms of how much preparation did you put into it. And I'm going to have a checklist in a minute to read you really get details on how you prepare right now for exams. Unless you've had our college success course, most students really don't know how to prepare for exams. They prepare for a college exam in the same way they prepare for a high school exam. And it's a lot different. And you think there's luck involved, when actually there isn't any luck involved. It really is preparation, and it really is how often do you study and how do you study. Those are the keys. We had a workshop on memory. Did anybody go to the memory workshop? Okay, the memory improvement workshop really showed how dendrites are grown in the brain. And the way you have to study, every time you come back to study, the dendrites get stronger and bigger and more complicated. That's why cramming doesn't work. Because in cramming, you get this little tiny little seedling dendrite that doesn't grow. Because you've only watered it once, or twice maybe. So the more times you study, you can think of it as watering a tree, and the tree gets bigger, grander, more complex, and the branches actually meet another branch, another tree, and that's how learning grows. So those are the techniques you need to know, and you need to know to use them. So it's not luck. You didn't get a good grade because you were lucky. You got a good grade because you were prepared. Now sometimes you can luck out because what you prepared was actually what the teacher asked. But the more savvy you become, you can really predict the same kinds of questions your instructors will ask. But you've got to be listening for those clues that your instructors give. And again, that's something you can learn. So you have to study your return tests. Get all your stuff together now. The next 3 weeks is time to get everything together. Predict questions that are going to be on the final. Now some of these are things you do for any test, but of course they're more important for your final exam. Create summary sheets and flashcards. You don't have to do that this week, but probably in 2 weeks it's time to start doing that. Make your summary sheets and your flashcards. Who uses flashcards? Okay, how do you use them?
I usually just go top of I have more like essay-based questions, so I'll just kind of write all the information on the back, just on my subject.
Okay, so you're predicting the essay question,
Yeah.
and then you're putting the answer on the back. Probably outline form?
Yeah.
Yeah, well that's good. A lot of students don't do that for essay questions. That's the best way. How about multiple choice or kind of objective tests? Do you do flashcards also? How?
I just want to do it for statistics, which is similar to flashcards for math. But I just go to the book and read all the definitions.
No, it's not weird to do it for math, because the formula's right.
Yeah, formulas.
Yeah, and definitions. Terminology is, in every class has its own language, so flashcards are great for definitions. Who else uses flashcards?
I just put the main subject on the front and then on the back I just put the answer.
So you put a
I can
question.
quiz myself.
Yeah, so you quiz yourself. Good, that's called self-testing. So you put a question on the front and then you put the answer on the back. Now, you see, if you have a comprehensive coming up, you can start making your flashcards clear back to chapter 1 in the next 3 weeks. And that also gives you something to do when you're reviewing. Instead of just looking at how many of you highlight your textbooks? Not even half. Okay. If you don't highlight, what do you do with your textbook?
I guess just read it.
Just read it. Yeah?
I don't highlight, but I do highlight. I have a test preparation that came along with my textbook, and that's what I highlight, not my textbook. It has the vocabulary words, questions.
Like a study guide?
Yes, and that's
Okay,
what I
you don't
highlight.
highlight your textbook, but you should highlight it when you're reading it. Okay. In terms of reading something that, since time is such an issue with all students, you don't want to read the chapter twice. You don't want to even, you don't want to go back. You want one. One time should be enough, but you have to know how to read it in order for one time to be enough.
My teacher said you shouldn't highlight the text because then you end up highlighting everything, you get everything.
You can over highlight, and that's the danger. But the thing is, if you should highlight the text. But the thing is, you read the paragraph first, and then you go back and highlight the main idea. If you're highlighting as you read, then you tend to highlight everything because it all seems important. But if you read it first, the paragraph, then you know what's the most important. It's not always a whole sentence you have to highlight. Maybe it's a key word. But highlighting does two things. It keeps you awake. How many of you have fallen asleep over your textbooks? Yeah, right. I know. It keeps you awake because you're doing something. And it also works in terms of your learning style because it's physical. And so it goes deeper into your memory because you're actually doing something.
So should you read the entire text first or just like a page?
I would do a
and then go back
paragraph
over
at a time when I highlight. I do a paragraph at a time. Because that way,
Right.
if it gets me too much information, even to do a whole section. Then I go back, I still can't find the important things.
Right.
I forgot it. So I do a paragraph at a time.
Some teachers consider highlighting like damaging the concentration. How do we do it?
Forget about that. You should, I don't care about the instructor, what the instructor thinks about it. He said that some instructors think you're damaging the textbook. That's a very high school theory. Because in high school you can't mark your textbooks because they go to the next class and the next class. But in college, you are the most important person. Your grade is the most important. Deface the book. Right. Deface it. It's your book. It's your grade. I want you to get the best grade possible. You want the best grade possible. You want to understand what you're reading while you're reading it. You don't want to daydream, fall asleep, lose concentration while you're reading it. You don't want to go back. You want to spend as little time as possible and get the maximum out of your studying, right? Little time as possible, maximum output. Short input, maximum output. That's what you want. And the way you get that is to be active readers when you're reading. And I won't go into it. I really deface books. I write in the margins. I write the questions off to the side. I circle vocabulary terminology. I argue with the author. My books are a mess, but I keep them. Now, you can still sell books back even though they've been written in. You may not get as much. But again, is it better to get the B or is it better to get the 10 extra bucks at the end of the semester? The B for your GPA is what you want. So you have to sacrifice a few dollars because you have written in your books beyond highlighting. So there's actually life beyond highlighting. Highlighting is not even enough. But if you're not even doing highlighting, at the end of your chapter, can you answer the questions at the end without looking back?
Sometimes.
Sometimes, okay. Thank you for being honest, but not most of the time.
I just read through
If
it.
you're just reading through it, right? Okay. So if you're in the case right now, if you're in that situation right now with 3 weeks to go, it's time to reread your chapters and make these summary cards. The summary cards or the sheets or the flash cards is what you study from in the next 3 weeks, but you have to make them now. This is the week to start making those things. going back to chapters 1 and 2 and 3 and 5 and 10. Okay. Ask about the format. Don't ever be shy to ask your instructor, what does this test look like? How many questions is it? Is there an essay question? Because usually essay questions count more than multiple choice and objective, so they're more important, that you need to study and prepare for them more. You don't want to be surprised. Of course, you have to read the directions on the test. Some students are in such a hurry, they don't do that. Okay, visit your instructor if you have any questions. They would love to hear from you. If you're waffling between that C and the D, go visit your instructor and impress them with how concerned you are about doing well in their class. Especially if it's a lecture class and there's 100 and some kids out there and they don't even know your name. If they know you and if they know you're trying, and if you're right there between the grades, they'll give you the higher grade. Believe me, instructors do that if they think you're trying. If they don't think you're trying, if your attendance has been abysmal, then they put it the other way. So intellectually planning, and then emotionally planning. Okay, before we go on to the emotional stuff. This blue handout that I just gave you, let's look at the first page, because it's still on planning. And I have some planning aids here for you. Could you pass those out? Okay, in terms of planning all that stuff, you have your calendars for the month, the week. The month is starting actually this week. Just don't do it for the month of December. Although December, gee golly, it starts Friday. Right, I know. So there's the monthly calendar, and then there's the weekly calendar, and then there's the daily to-do list. He's passing them out. You can make copies of them. Okay, they're the bright pink. You can put all your schedule, all of your, look at your syllabi, find out what projects are left. So you can get all those end of the semester projects. They're not surprise. When you put your doctor's appointments, put your favorite TV shows on the weekly things. I mean, still do what you like to do, but make time to prepare for what's coming up in 3 weeks. Okay, the second, number 2, talks about this class analysis chart. You just turn over the page, it's attached. This is where you can look at all the courses you have. Some of you have 4 exams. Some of you have 5 classes, maybe more. Look at your classes and see what is left. What kind of incomplete work can you make up? What haven't you turned in that needs to be turned in? And then the other one is the class assignment chart. When you look at the rest of the 3 weeks, look at your syllabi, ask your instructor, find out what's due, and make a list in here so you know how long it's going to take you to do certain things. If you've got a paper in English, a research paper, anybody in English 1A? Okay, that research paper, you can't do it in 4 hours. Right, no, you're laughing, you remember it, right. How much time did it take you altogether? But 20 hours maybe, in 3 or 4 hour chunks here and there. Yeah, going through all the steps. So this sheet helps you just kind of see where you are, what is left to be done, and then you take the information of what you have to do and transfer it to the monthly calendar. I said you're becoming time management experts this week, this month. You may not have ever practiced time management in your life. You've heard how to do it, right? Every instructor says you need a day planner, right? How many of you have a day planner? See, a lot of you have a day planner, so you at least do that. So, do you follow the day planner? Right, no, she doesn't follow it. So here's your monthly for the next 3 weeks. Here's a weekly. You can make copies of this. And every Sunday night, sit down and do this for the week ahead. And on those really particularly busy days, use the to-do list. Now, you may not ever do this again except during final exam time. You're not going to become a time, freak about your time just because for a short period, a highly stressful time, you plan your time. Consider, if you can, consider yourself athletes in training for the next 3 weeks. For the next 3 weeks, your goal is to get the best grades you can on all of your final exams. So you need to go into high gear. These are the 3 weeks to tell your friends, I can't go out tonight. But December 20th, is that the last day after your exams? Let's have a blowout. Yeah, let's reward ourselves when it's over. But don't, this is the time to curtail your normal kinds of social activities and actually catch up and study.
As a matter of fact, on my answering machine, I put, if you're dying, let me know, I'll pick up, otherwise I'll call you when I surface.
That's very good. Actually turning off the phone when you're studying is one of the best things you can do for yourself. If you have roommates, a do not disturb sign on your door is the best thing you can do for yourself. First of all, you're telling yourself that you value your studying and you value your studying time, and you're communicating to those people around you that you value it and you're prioritizing it. And you expect them to help you out because you need this time. And if you do have some spare time, spend it for yourself. Go for a walk, do some exercise, go to the beach. Do something that's going to build up your immune system and your self-confidence. So that's just an aside. If you just think of yourself as an athlete in training, okay, the Olympics are coming up. Final exams are your form of the Olympics. So the planning is important. Let's go on to the emotional planning, because part of it I was getting to. Monitor your self-talk. If you catch yourself saying, I hate math, why am I doing this? I hate school. These crummy professors, why do they expect me to remember everything I've read in this whole damn book over the last friggin' 18 weeks? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that's your attitude, but that's a bad attitude. Because then you get conflicted with your studying. And instead of studying and concentrating and focusing on your studying, you're resenting. You're in deep resentment. So you don't want to focus, so it's positive self-talk. You want to monitor what goes on in your head when you're not thinking of anything else, when you're in the shower, when you're driving, when those thoughts come back, or I'm never going to pass that math test. I know I'm going to fail. When those thoughts come in, you need to change them, you need to monitor them. Because you can't wallow in that kind of self-pity. And you can't have those kinds of expectations, because with those pictures in your head, I teach a whole class on test anxiety and performance anxiety, where our imagery really go into how important it is, the pictures that we have in our head and our dreams, like our nightmares and things like that. If you're constantly seeing yourself failing that math test, you're going to fail that math test, because the mind plays tricks on your subconscious and on what you do. If you see yourself doing well on that math test, now of course you still have to study, then if you do make all the right decisions, because your mind is going to say, oh yeah, in order to do well on that math test, I have to say no to my friends, I have to do my homework tonight, I have to see my math teacher. And these things happen, they fall into place much more easily, because you have that picture and your subconscious is just driving you towards that picture of success. So it's your choice. You can at least stop the negative thoughts and the negative images and try to think more positive. Also, lower your generalized stress level. It's a time to take good care of yourself, get lots of sleep. Don't stay up late cramming. Plan your time so you get lots of rest, so your immune system is strong. Drink lots of fluids. Eat well as you can. All those things that you heard about being in peak condition, then this is the time to do that. And lastly, avoid negative people. If you've got people who drag you down and say, why are you studying anyway? You're never going to get that job. Or if your parents say, I knew you never should have gone to college. You should have gotten, you should have gone out and gotten a job. Avoid those people. You don't need any of their crap. Okay? It's contagious and you don't need it. And you're working on doing the best you can. Okay, so the next P then is pacing, because that really sounds like a boxer, doesn't it? You've done your planning. You know exactly what you need to do. You know exactly what's expected of you. You have your time all planned out. So now you need to put some of that into practice. You need to start doing things. So you're working out on your energy level, healthy exercise, sleep, limit social. Some of these things I already said. Oh, take breaks. A lot of students work on 50 minutes of studying and then a 10-minute break. Some people do an hour and a half of studying and a 15-minute break. Some do 2 hours of studying and a half-hour break. You really need to decide what is best for you. How many of you do the 50-10? Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
What kind of breaks do you take?
I just take like, I try to monitor like, maybe like laundry when I'm doing homework, so then I like just change the scene of doing the work.
Just do something else for a while, right? What kind of breaks do you take, Anthony? Oh, you read something for fun for 10 minutes. And again, you're changing your mind. You mean you're changing what's going through your head. Well, how do some of the rest of you take breaks? Come on, y'all take breaks. How do you take a break?
Normally like when I'm working a problem, I wait till I get to the end of a problem or something like that. I don't do it like time-based. I do it by how much I accomplish.
What if you have a 3-hour study session?
Normally I still break that up between things I want to accomplish within the 3 hours.
Then what do you do after
Just grab coffee or do something like that.
coffee? Like
Talk to somebody.
Talk to somebody. A telephone call is good, but you have to shorten a telephone call, don't you? Or telephone calls go into an hour or more, so you got to be careful with the telephone. Same thing with TV. If you're going to watch a TV show, you have to cut it off. You know, a half hour at the most, because you want to get back to your studying. What I'm saying, some breaks take up the rest of the evening. So you got to be careful that a break is truly a break. Rewards are good. At the end of your session, little rewards along the way, because that research paper can take a long time, or your comprehensive test. I mean, how many chapters are in that book? Do you know how many chapters? Okay, I work with the human physiology class a lot, and they have 20 chapters in their human physiology textbook. Now, if that was a comprehensive test, first of all, it would kill everybody in the class because it's a hugely difficult subject. But it's not rare for a book to have 20 chapters. So if you're going to go back and do like a chapter at a time and do a summary sheet, when you're done, you need to reward yourself. Rewarding yourself helps with procrastination because you get something little done, and then you do something you like. So what are some of the rewards that you use?
Eat.
Eat? Good, yeah. Food.
Oh, I don't know, I just listen to music.
Music? Do you listen to music while you're studying?
No.
Okay, some people can and some people can't, so you listen to music as your break. Good. What do you do?
I take power naps.
Power naps, 20-minute naps, I do them too. Yeah, they're better than an hour real nap.
Yeah.
They're really great too. You have to learn how to do a power nap. How do you reward yourself?
Sleep.
Sleep. That's hard. Well, maybe a power nap would be better. Sleeping could take a couple hours, right? Then you wake up groggy, and it's hard to get back to studying. How do you reward yourself? Eat and sleep. And power nap. Okay, well, I'm glad to hear no one said they go out for a beer. That's not the best. That's not the best reward, unless it's at the end. You've done everything that night, and that's good. But it's not a good thing to do for a break, because again, it changes your whole thinking pattern. I think I saw a hand was up.
I take a walk outside.
Oh, exercise is fabulous as a break because you're regenerating energy and you're getting oxygen to the brain. Also, the best thing to do when you're taking a test or studying is to drink water, because water oxygenates the brain. And so actually, any exercise, when you're even at the computer, stretching, doing a lot of isometrics and things like that to break the stress up of just sitting at that computer or sitting. So exercise breaks are probably the better kind because you're energizing again. Caffeine's good too, so maybe you can drink caffeine and exercise at the same time. But I have my doubts about Red Bull and some of those things that have so much caffeine in them. I think they make you jittery more than more than focused, which you want. Okay, so your efforts. Pacing yourself with your efforts, plan your time, schedule other commitments, delegate as much as possible. So that's under the pacing. Now what's left is the practice. Like any athlete, if you're going to be good at something, you have to practice, practice, practice. Long page, because there's a lot of things to be practiced the next 3 weeks. Frequent reviews. I already mentioned how dendrites grow, and every time you review, every time you come back to something, your brain, the neural connecting chemicals grow and become easier for you to recall. The reason why you can't recall things is because you haven't reviewed them frequently enough for the dendrites to be strong enough. So when you retrieve, a little light should go on. How many of you have seen the movie What the Bleep Do We Know? You have? Okay, there's this wonderful segment in What the Bleep Do We Know about the brain, where it's all lighting up and all of the, the chemical things are going off like fireworks. So one little retrieval cue thought, like, okay, what is the cause of X? Kind of, the charge starts here, but then it goes through this whole associative memory pattern of all the things that's related to that X. And it lights up as it goes through the brain. If you don't have a lot of those places for it to light up because you haven't studied enough or reviewed enough, then you only get maybe 2 or 3 things connected instead of a chain of maybe 10 things, where your answer is along that chain of 10 things. So that's why frequent review is crucial. And you have 3 weeks now, so you have time to do this frequent review. Practice 5 to 7. We talked about that. 50 minutes to 10 minutes. Avoid cramming. Use small amounts of time. That's where flashcards come in. But you can use 10 minutes here. You can use your time between classes. Don't go home between 2 classes if you've got an hour and a half or even a 3-hour break. Stay on campus. Go to the library. Read, study. Reward yourself when a goal is met. We talked about. Frequent reviews. Okay, now the next part is a variety of approaches. Not only does the brain like repetition, but it doesn't like repetition in the same way. The brain gets bored, just like you do, right? You get bored. Flashcards are great, but they shouldn't be your only way to study. And because the brain says, oh, flashcards again. Oh. Done that, been there. So the more different ways you review, especially something that's novel, something that's interesting, something that's fascinating to you, something that you're really engaged in, that's where drawing pictures and feedback loops and flow charts and diagrams and graphs, draw them yourself. And the brain will say, oh, something fun. These are all the ways, my goodness, that's a lot of ways that people can review. You can take practice tests. How many of you have gone online with your textbook? Oh boy, only 2. Most modern textbooks these days have an online companion site, and there are wonderful practice tests with answers. I mean, you take the test first by yourself, but then it tells you which ones you got wrong, and it tells you why. Now, your instructor won't even tell you that. So you can do it at home on your computer. It's a wonderful way to review. You can print them out, and you can use them to study from. Outline possible essay questions, like she said she does. Study groups or tutoring. Who has received tutoring regularly? Why do you go?
I need assistance with courses, kind of tough.
Yeah, okay.
So I need
We all
assistance.
have our tough courses. I mean, if you're good in the sciences, you're usually lousy in English. If you're good in English and literature and psychology, you're usually crummy in math or in sciences. So we all have our tough courses. So getting tutored really helps. How many of you have worked in study groups? Oh, not very many. Was it a good experience for you?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. If you stay on task,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the point about study groups. You have to stay on task. But if you stay on task, study groups are great because you get to verbalize what you're learning, right? And you get to hear what other people, how they reframe something, how they summarize it in their own words. That's when you know you've learned something, when you can summarize it in your own words. When you're not regurgitating exactly the way the author said it in the book, because that's all just memorization. You've gone beyond that the moment you can summarize it in your own words. And in study groups, the best study groups, it's best to study with good students because they're serious about their study time and they know study groups are very valuable. You have 3 weeks now to maybe form a study group, but I would look at the better students in your class and say, hey, I just need somebody to study with. Once a week for the next 3 weeks. Draw mind maps and visual presentations. Who knows about mind maps? Anthony, what are they?
Mind map.
This is kind of a cluster mind map. Another way that it's a great review strategy, because I use circles here, but from each of these then we would go, you would put the minor ideas, the main ideas here and the minor things here. So let's say there were 7 ways to balance work and family, then those 7 ways would each go here. If you are a visual learner, and if you are a tactile learner who likes to touch and feel and do things, these mind maps are a great way to review because you're taking all this information. These 7 things of how to balance your family could have been 3 pages in the textbook, but you're narrowing it down just to this 1 line for each of these 7. It's a way to review. It's one way to review. So every time you review, if you can do it differently, the brain says, I'm awake, I'm listening, throw it to me, baby. You know, I want this stuff. And that's where you want your brain to be. So summary sheets and flashcards, walk and study. How many of you are tactile learners or you're kinesthetic learners? That means you learn best when you're moving. Right. Take your notes to the beach. Take your notes outside and go for a walk. Or do it on the treadmill, even, in the gym. Instead of watching those crazy television shows or listening to your music, do your flashcards while you walk. If you're a tactile learner, it's the best way. I'm a tactile learner, and I do my best writing when I'm walking on the beach. Well, because I'm calm, for one reason, and my intuition helps as I walk. And I remember it because I've been walking. So you have to know your own learning style and use your learning style. Reading out loud, studying out loud, your roommate may think you're crazy, but who cares? If you can hear yourself, again, it's bringing another learning modality. So instead of studying silently, you need to get up and move and be loud. Because the more senses you use, the sense of touch, the sense of sight, reading the book, highlighting, the sense of hearing, the sense of talking, more of those you use to study, then the more you're going to recall. And she was so right. When it's time to take your final exams, this is the biggest thing. This is what you care about. Can I remember what I studied when I need to remember it at the test, right? So you have to have frequent review and a variety of approaches. And this will make you feel more prepared, so your stress level is down because you feel more intellectually prepared. You've been taking care of yourself. You've been exercising, you've been eating, you've been pacing yourself well. You've got all these projects and papers and exams done because you planned them. They didn't surprise you. You didn't procrastinate them. You've been managing your time well. You've been getting help from your family. You've been telling your friends, I'm on hold now, catch you later. And you've taken care of yourself. And you've been minimizing procrastination and you've been increasing your motivation because you've been telling yourself how smart you are, how easy this test is going to be, how excited you are to learn, accounting, business, all the courses that you're in, you're so excited to learn this stuff. And and you can't wait for the reward, which is the end of the semester and semester break and Christmas. On top of that, you get Christmas presents by finishing the semester. If you want to know what you can do to improve your test preparation and your test taking. Not now, but you can take this inventory, and of course the questions where you put never or seldom are the places that you need to work on in terms of preparing for tests and taking a test. What I gave you today was really how to use the next 3 weeks, and we kind of went over the surface of a lot of stuff. This questionnaire will give you some of the details, and because I think we're running out of time, let's see what time it is. There's one more handout. Okay, before you go, because there's still, I'll take, say 5 minutes left. I'd like you just to answer these 16 questions. Because all you have to do is check the strategies that you used to prepare for your last exam. Okay, just take 2 minutes to do that, and then you can answer the other questions on your own. Just those 16, just put a check next to the ones that you actually did. Okay, of the 16, how many do you have 10? 11? 12? Is 10's the max? Anybody more than 10? 12. You're the winner. How many of you have 9? 8? 7? 6? 5? 4? 3? 2? 1? 0? Oh, good. Okay. Well, this gives you then a lot of suggestions, a lot of things you can do. Before you go, I forgot there's one part left on the practicing, and it's on the back side of the blue sheet, which does talk about the 3 Ps. If you've been daydreaming your way through this presentation, you can read this handout. But it's the mental preparation. I've alluded to how important positive self-talk is, but it's that picture in your mind that I talked about. Instead of picturing failure, you can picture success. And this little script down here is something you can either put on tape and listen to before you go to sleep, or in the morning when you're in that twilight zone in between sleep and rest, when you actually have your brainwave pattern is changing. It's what they use in hypnosis, is in that period of time. So you can actually put this on tape yourself, or you can just kind of read this over and use parts of it to reprogram your expectations, so you can see yourself succeeding in a test. And if you did this once a week for the next 3 weeks, I can assure you you're going to get a few extra points that you probably wouldn't have gotten if you didn't do this. Okay. So that's the last part of the practicing, is the mental rehearsal. And I'll hang around for a little bit if anybody wants to ask some questions or want to follow up somehow. Okay, good luck. Remember, you're athletes, you're champions, you're going to do well.
Thank you.